fair election is the absolute bedrock of a democracy. But its integrity, its very soul, really depends on something we hardly ever think about: a clean and accurate voter list. Today, we're going to dive deep into the massive, and I mean massive, exercise India's Election Commission undertakes to get that list right. So let me ask you this. What if an election could be swayed by ghost voters? It sounds like something out of a political thriller, right? But it's a very real risk. When those electoral rolls aren't kept spotless, they can fill up with names that just shouldn't be there. And that creates a huge vulnerability that could threaten the entire democratic process. So what kind of problems are we talking about here? Well, for starters, you've got the names of people who have passed away still on the list. Then you have duplicate entries where one person might be registered in 2 or even 3 different places. You've got voters who've moved away for good but are still listed at their old address. And of course, you've got plain old data entry mistakes. Every single one of these is like a little crack in the foundation of our electoral system. Okay, so how on earth do you tackle a problem on that scale? Well, the Election Commission of India has a really powerful and frankly intense solution. It's called the Special Intensive Revision, or SIR for short. And honestly, the best way to think of it is as a full-on, nationwide electoral deep clean. So what is it exactly? SIR is a full-scale, door-to-door verification drive. This isn't just some minor software update. It's a complete overhaul of the system, designed to make sure every single eligible citizen is on the list and every ineligible name is taken off. Now, it's really important to understand that this is not the same as the regular annual summary revision. Think of the annual thing as just routine maintenance, like a quick oil change for your car. SRCI, on the other hand, is like taking the entire engine apart and rebuilding it from the ground up. The absolute key difference, as you can see, is that mandatory door-to-door verification. This isn't just a paperwork shuffle, it's boots on the ground knocking on every door. And make no mistake, the Election Commission isn't just doing this on a whim. It has the full force of the law behind it. Its power comes straight from 2 very important places. Article 224 of the Constitution, which basically gives it total control over elections, and Section 21 of the Representation of the People Act, which specifically says it can order a special revision like this. So we know they have the legal power, but how does this gigantic undertaking actually happen? Let's break down the SAI process step by step from the very first announcement to that final squeaky clean voter roll. It all starts with an official notification from the Election Commission. Then an actual army of booth-level officers, they're called BLOs, begins the huge task of going door to door to verify every single voter. That's the scrutiny phase, where they're looking for people who've died or moved. After that, a draft roll gets published, which gives you, the public, a chance to look it over and flag any problems. And only after all of those claims are sorted out is the final clean roll officially published. But here's where the whole story gets a lot more complicated. Because while the goal is a perfect, pure voter list, the process itself is kind of a double-edged sword. It carries a really big risk of accidentally kicking legitimate voters off the list. Just to give you an idea of the scale we're talking about, look at this number, 2.89 crore. That is the mind-boggling number of names that were removed just in the first verification stage in Uttar Pradesh. The list plummeted from 15.44 crore voters down to 12.55 crore in the draft roll. That one number shows you the massive impact and the massive potential for things to go wrong. So yeah, this process, even with the best intentions, is loaded with challenges. The number one worry, the one at the heart of it all, is voter disenfranchisement. Real, actual citizens being accidentally dropped from the list. Why? Well, sometimes it's because of strict document requirements that are just impossible for, say, a poor person or migrant worker to meet. Then you have the sheer logistical nightmare of the whole thing, a growing digital divide. And, of course, you always have the swirl of political allegations that the process is being used to unfairly target certain groups of voters. It's a lot to deal with. And this quote really gets to the core of the whole controversy. The biggest concern is that the people who are most likely to get accidentally excluded are often the most vulnerable people in our society. The poor, migrant workers, marginalized communities. They're the ones whose voices could be silenced, whether it's by accident or not, during a cleanup this aggressive. And listen, this isn't just some academic debate. It's happening right now, all across India. We're seeing it in Bihar, where over 8 core voters had to provide stricter proof. We already talked about the huge number of deletions in Uttar Pradesh. And now there's a new phase rolling out across 12 more states, everywhere from Tamil Nadu to Kerala. and it's set to affect over 51 crore voters. The scale is just immense. So all of this brings us to the most important question of all. Where do we go from here? How do we find that balance between needing a perfectly accurate voter list and protecting the fundamental right of every single citizen to cast their vote? So how do we fix this? Well, experts point to a few key things. First, make it fairer. Have crystal clear rules about documents to cut down on arguments, and don't make it impossible for people who are already registered. Second, make it smarter. Use technology like mobile apps to make things smoother, but you have to pair that with real-world outreach, like special camps, to help those who aren't online. And finally, and this is probably the most important, you have to build trust. That means being transparent, like publishing the lists of deleted names, and actually listening to all the political parties and citizen groups. Which leaves us with this fundamental question, doesn't it? The goal of a perfectly accurate voter list is absolutely essential for a healthy democracy. But that goal can never come at the cost of shutting out the very people democracy is supposed to empower. Finding that delicate balance between purity and inclusion, well, that isn't just a technical challenge. It's one of the biggest tests facing India's electoral future. You know,